The Zorvani were once a proud and advanced race, known throughout the galaxy for their beautiful cities and peaceful culture. Their homeworld, Zorva, had a rich history and a unique ecosystem that made it one of the most fascinating planets in the galaxy. They were a people of wisdom, art, and technology, respected by many of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. But that was before the war. The Zorvani's enemies were relentless. For years, they fought against an enemy that wanted to erase them from existence. Despite their advanced technology and their unity, the Zorvani could not stand against the constant onslaught. Cities were destroyed, their infrastructure was shattered, and their people were left homeless and starving. As the war dragged on, the Galactic Council, a powerful group of the galaxy's most influential species, turned its back on the Zorvani. They called them lost and unworthy. The Zorvani had become a burden, too weak to defend themselves and too isolated to ask for help. One by one, other civilizations that had once stood by their side abandoned them. The Zorvani were left alone, their cries for help ignored by everyone. Their once thriving cities lay in ruins, and their people wandered through space in search of a new home, with no place to call their own. Then, in a final desperate attempt, the Zorvani sent out a signal. It was their last hope. The signal was broadcast on all frequencies, reaching deep into space, across the stars, hoping to find someone who would listen. The message was simple, but filled with desperation. We are the Zorvani. We have nowhere left to go. Our people are dying. Please, help us. It was a cry for mercy, a plea to anyone who would hear it. But the response was always the same: silence. The Galactic Council, in all their wisdom, had decided that the Zorvani no longer mattered. They had abandoned them, and the galaxy had moved on. But Earth was different. When the message reached the United Earth Federation, the reaction was immediate. Earth had always stood apart from the rest of the galaxy. They weren't part of the Galactic Council. They didn't have the same power as other civilizations, but they had something that others didn't: compassion. Captain Elias Carter, a decorated officer in the Earth Defense Fleet, was one of the first to hear the Zorvani's distress signal. When he saw the message, he didn't hesitate. He understood what it meant. A species was dying, and no one cared. But Earth cared. They had always believed in standing up for the helpless, for the ones who couldn't defend themselves. Within hours, Earth's government made a bold decision. They would answer the call. The Zorvani had nowhere else to turn, and Earth was their last hope. Captain Carter was given command of a special task force. The mission clear: find the Zorvani refugees and bring them back to Earth. There was no time to waste. The fate of an entire species hung in the balance. As the human fleet gathered, the eyes of the galaxy were on them. The Galactic Council was not pleased. They had already dismissed the Zorvani as insignificant, and they didn't want Earth interfering. But Earth had always been different. They didn't care about politics. They didn't care about status. What mattered to them was doing what was right. The fleet set off into the vastness of space, traveling toward the coordinates of the Zorvani signal. As they approached the region where the refugees were said to be, Carter couldn't help but wonder what they would find. Would the Zorvani still be alive, or had they already perished, forgotten by the galaxy? The human fleet arrived at the coordinates, but what they found was worse than they had imagined. The Zorvani ships were barely functional, held together by nothing more than hope and desperation. The fleet looked like a shadow of the civilization it had once been: cracked hulls, dim lights, and engines that barely sputtered to life. Captain Carter ordered his fleet to begin the rescue operation immediately. They worked tirelessly to board the Zorvani ships, helping the survivors, many of whom were weak and sick from years of hardship. The Zorvani were a proud people, but the war had broken them. As the humans provided food, water, and medical aid, Carter could see the disbelief in their eyes. They had not expected anyone to care. As the first Zorvani were brought aboard the human ships, one of them, an older woman with silver hair and deep-set eyes, approached Captain Carter. She was thin, her face lined with exhaustion, but her eyes sparkled with gratitude. "You came," she said, her voice cracking. "I never thought anyone would come." Carter nodded, offering a warm smile. "It's not over yet. You're safe now. We'll get you back home." The Zorvani woman shook her head slowly. "Home is gone," she whispered. "We have no home left." Captain Carter's heart sank. He knew the truth of her words. But one thing was clear. Earth had given them hope again. They would not be forgotten. The human fleet began its journey back to Earth. But as they moved away from the broken Zorvani ships, Captain Carter couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had turned its back on the Zorvani, but Earth would stand strong. No matter what, Captain Elias Carter stood at the helm of the lead ship in the human fleet, his eyes scanning the dark void of space. The Zorvani refugee ships were now under the protection of Earth's fleet, but the mission was far from over. They had rescued the survivors, but what lay ahead was uncertain. The Galactic Council had already made it clear that Earth's actions had not gone unnoticed. They were watching, and the consequences of defying their orders could be severe. The humans had arrived just in time to save the Zorvani. The refugee ships, battered and struggling, would not have lasted much longer. But as Carter watched the Zorvani slowly recover on their new ships, human ships that had been adapted for their needs, he could see the disbelief in their eyes. They had been abandoned by everyone, and now they were being given a second chance by those they never expected, humans. "We're heading back to Earth, Captain," said Lieutenant Maria Wong, standing beside him on the bridge. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of concern in it. The mission had been successful so far, but the real challenge had yet to come. Carter nodded. "Keep an eye on the scanners. We don't know if the Council will come after us, but we need to be prepared." The Zorvani refugees had been brought aboard the human fleet's ships and were being cared for by Earth's medical and humanitarian teams. They were being given food, water, and the chance to rest. Yet, there was a heaviness in the air, a quiet uncertainty. The Zorvani had no place to go, no home to return to. Earth had become their only hope, but would the galaxy allow this to continue? As the fleet began its long journey back to Earth, Captain Carter couldn't shake the nagging feeling that trouble was on the horizon. The Galactic Council had not made its position clear yet, but it was only a matter of time before they would take action. They had already warned Earth to stay out of galactic politics, and helping the Zorvani would only escalate things. Meanwhile, on the refugee ships, the Zorvani leaders were meeting with Carter in the ship's conference room. The tall, thin figure of the Zorvani ambassador, Ileana, stood at the front, her purple skin still pale from the hardships of their journey. She addressed Carter with quiet gratitude, but also a hint of sadness in her voice. "Captain Carter, we owe you and your people our lives," she said, her voice steady but tired. "But we do not know where we can go from here. Earth is not our home. We are grateful for your kindness, but we cannot stay forever. Our people are broken. Our culture, our civilization, we have lost it all." Carter looked at Ileana, his expression firm yet empathetic. "You're not alone anymore. Earth will not turn its back on you. You'll have a new home here." Ileana's eyes softened as she looked at the humans around her. It was clear she was touched, but there was also a sadness in her gaze. The Zorvani had known nothing but loss for so long, they couldn't quite believe in the promise of a new beginning. "You speak of hope, Captain," Ileana said, her voice almost a whisper. "But the galaxy is not kind. We've seen it. I don't know if we can ever be accepted again. Will the Council allow us to live in peace?" Carter's jaw tightened. He knew the answer, but he wasn't about to let Ileana or the Zorvani lose their last shred of hope. "The Council will have to answer to Earth now. We won't stand by while they turn their backs on innocent people." As the conversation ended, Carter returned to the bridge. The Zorvani had made it clear that they had no place left in the galaxy. Earth was now their only refuge. The fleet moved silently through space, the stars glimmering like cold jewels outside the window. But for the humans on board, the future was uncertain. Captain Carter couldn't shake the thought that their journey was far from over. The Zorvani had suffered so much, and now Earth was the only chance they had. Yet, even as they made their way home, Carter knew that the peace they sought might not come easily. The galaxy was a vast and complicated place, and many of its powers would not stand for what Earth had done. Back on Earth, the news of the rescue had spread like wildfire. The people of Earth, united under one flag, celebrated the mission's success. The humanitarian effort had been nothing short of remarkable, and the Zorvani had been welcomed with open arms. But while Earth's people celebrated, the leaders knew the real challenge was ahead. The Galactic Council would not tolerate Earth's interference. They had already made their displeasure known. The Zorvani, the last of their kind, had been cast aside by the galaxy, and now they had found refuge with Earth. But how long would that last? Would Earth be able to stand against the might of the Council? Or would they be forced to face the consequences of their compassion? As the fleet made its way back to Earth, Carter couldn't help but feel a sense of resolve. Earth would stand strong, no matter what. The Zorvani had been abandoned, but Earth had not forgotten them. And if it meant standing up to the entire galaxy, so be it. Humanity had always believed in the power of compassion, and now they would see just how far that belief could carry them. The journey back to Earth had been long and quiet. Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the vastness of space. The Zorvani refugees, once the proud leaders of a great civilization, were now safe aboard Earth's fleet. But despite the quiet, there was an undeniable tension in the air. Earth had acted boldly by offering refuge to the Zorvani, but as the fleet approached Earth's borders, the weight of their decision began to feel heavier with each passing moment. The Galactic Council would not take kindly to this. Earth had always been an outsider, refusing to join their powerful political body. The Council preferred to deal with the galaxy's most powerful species that could add to their power, wealth, and influence. Earth, however, was different. It had always stood apart, focusing on its own people, its own way of life. But now, Earth had made a powerful statement. They had chosen compassion over political gain. Captain Carter's thoughts were interrupted by the voice of Lieutenant Maria Huang, who stood beside him. She looked at him with a mixture of concern and determination. "Captain," she said, her tone serious, "we've detected a fleet approaching. It's coming from the direction of the Galactic Council's space. They've picked up our signal." Carter's heart sank. He had expected this. The Council would not simply let Earth take the Zorvani without consequences. The humans had always been an anomaly in galactic politics, and this action would not go unnoticed. "Raise the shields," Carter ordered, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "Prepare for a possible confrontation. We're not backing down." The fleet, still carrying the Zorvani refugees, began to ready itself for any threat that might come their way. The humans had never fought a war against the Council, but they were prepared to stand their ground. They had done what was right, and they would not allow anyone to take that away from them. As the fleet moved closer to Earth, the distant Council fleet grew larger on their sensors. It was an intimidating force, far more powerful than Earth's fleet. The Council's ships were sleek and advanced, their weapon systems far more sophisticated than anything Earth had at its disposal. But Carter wasn't afraid. The strength of the human spirit was their greatest weapon, and it had never failed them before. "The Council wants us to surrender," Carter muttered to himself, his eyes never leaving the approaching fleet. "They think they can scare us, but they've underestimated us." On board the refugee ships, the Zorvani watched with a mixture of fear and awe. They had heard stories of the Galactic Council's power, but they had never imagined that they would be caught in the middle of a conflict like this. Ileana, the Zorvani ambassador, stood with Captain Carter in the ship's command center, her purple skin still pale from the stress of their long journey. "Do you think the Council will attack?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with worry. Carter looked at her, his face set with resolve. They might try, but Earth will stand strong. We're not giving you up. Ileana nodded, but there was a sadness in her eyes. She had seen too much of the galaxy's cruelty to believe that things would be easy for them. She had witnessed her people's fall from grace, and the idea that Earth would go to war to protect them seemed almost too good to be true. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. Carter gave her a reassuring smile, but he couldn't help the heavy feeling in his chest. He knew the risks. Earth might not have the same military strength as the Council, but they had something that the Council didn't: unity. The humans would fight for what was right, no matter the cost. As the two fleets drew closer, Captain Carter prepared himself for the worst. The human fleet had made it clear that they would not back down, but he knew that the Council's ships were not to be underestimated. He had to make a decision. Would Earth stand down, or would they fight for the Zorvani, the race that the galaxy had forgotten? The Council's fleet finally hailed the human ships, their voice cold and commanding. "This is the Galactic Council," the transmission began. "You have violated our laws. Return the Zorvani refugees to their rightful place, and we will allow you to leave peacefully. Refuse, and we will use force." Carter's eyes narrowed. The Council had spoken, and their message was clear. The stakes were high, and the decision before him was not one to take lightly. "We refuse," Captain Carter said, his voice firm. "The Zorvani will not be abandoned again. They have a right to survive, and Earth will ensure that they do." The transmission went silent for a moment, and then the Council responded, their words dripping with disdain. "Very well, human," the Council's voice said. "Prepare for the consequences." The screen went dark, and Captain Carter turned to face his crew. The tension was palpable. The next few moments could change everything. But Carter knew one thing for sure: he would not let Earth back down from doing what was right. "Ready the weapons," Carter ordered, his voice steady and calm. "We fight for the Zorvani, and we fight for Earth, no matter what." The two fleets were now in position, and the fate of the Zorvani, as well as Earth's future, hung in the balance. Carter knew the coming battle would be the defining moment in their history. Would Earth's courage be enough to overcome the Council's might? As the first shots fired, Captain Carter could only hope that the answer would be yes. The moment the Council's fleet engaged Earth's defenses, space itself seemed to tremble. The quiet void of the galaxy was broken by the hum of weapons charging, the whine of engines, and the crackle of communications. Captain Elias Carter stood tall on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the enormous holographic screen in front of him, where the battle was unfolding in real time. "Shields at full power, Captain," Lieutenant Maria Huang shouted from her station, her voice filled with urgency. "Enemy ships are locking onto us. Weapons charging." Carter nodded, his mind focused entirely on the task ahead. The stakes had never been higher. Earth was not only fighting for the survival of the Zorvani, but also for its right to stand as an independent force in the galaxy. If Earth lost here, it could be the end of their sovereignty. On the refugee ships, the Zorvani were now aware of the full scale of the threat they faced. Ileana, the Zorvani ambassador, stood on the observation deck, watching the battle unfold. The sight of Earth's fleet, standing strong in the face of the Council's overwhelming power, stirred something deep inside her. For the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. "They're fighting for us," Ileana whispered, almost in disbelief. "Earth is willing to face the Council to protect us." Around her, other Zorvani refugees watched in silence. Many had once held high positions in their society, but now they were merely survivors, unsure of where their future lay. Yet in this moment, they saw a glimmer of what could be, a future where they were not abandoned. Back on the bridge of the flagship, Captain Carter's thoughts were sharply focused on the battle. The Council's fleet was vast, but Earth's ships were smaller, quicker, and far more adaptable. Carter had always believed that humanity's strength wasn't in firepower alone. It was in their ability to adapt, to think differently from the rest of the galaxy. "Fire on their lead ship," Carter ordered. We'll hit them hard, make them think twice about pursuing us." The command was given, and Earth's fleet opened fire, sending a barrage of energy blasts toward the approaching Council ships. The energy pulses streaked through space, colliding with the first wave of enemy ships, shaking the very fabric of space. For a brief moment, the Council's fleet hesitated, surprised by the intensity of the human defense. But the Council was not easily deterred. The enemy ships retaliated with a series of laser beams and missiles, their precision deadly. One of Earth's smaller vessels took a direct hit, its hull sparking and groaning under the strain. The crew inside fought to maintain control, but the damage was severe. "Damage report," Carter called out. "Minor hull breach on the port side, Captain," Lieutenant Huang replied. "We've lost auxiliary power to Section C. Get the repair crews on it immediately," Carter ordered, his voice calm but firm. "We can't afford to lose any more ships." As the battle raged on, Carter's mind raced. He knew they couldn't keep up this pace for long. The Council's fleet was better equipped, and they had the numbers on their side. But Earth had one thing the Council didn't: resolve. The humans would fight to the last breath to defend the Zorvani, and Carter was determined to see it through. Across the battlefield, the Zorvani refugees watched in shock as the human fleet held their ground. Ileana felt a swell of gratitude in her chest. Earth had not only offered them a safe haven, but was now risking everything to protect them. She turned to one of her fellow Zorvani, a young male named Cora, who stood beside her, his eyes wide as he watched the battle unfold. "We cannot let them fight alone," Cora said quietly, his voice filled with determination. "We must help." Ileana looked at him, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Help? How? We have no ships, no weapons." Cora's eyes glowed with the light of a sudden idea. "The humans have been kind to us. They've given us the chance to survive. But we owe them. We owe them everything." He moved quickly to a communication terminal and began typing, connecting to one of the human officers on the fleet. Ileana watched in silence, unsure of what Cora was planning. She had seen her people fight before, but never in such dire circumstances. The Zorvani had always relied on their advanced technology, but now they were helpless. Still, Cora's voice was filled with conviction as he spoke into the communicator. "This is Cora, of the Zorvani. We request permission to assist the humans in this battle," he said firmly. "We may not have ships or weapons, but we have knowledge. We can help." There was a brief pause before the human officer responded. "Permission granted, Cora. If you have any way to help, now is the time." Cora turned to Ileana, his eyes filled with resolve. "We may not have much, but we still have our minds. Our knowledge of space, technology. We can use that to assist them. Together, we can turn the tide." Ileana nodded, understanding the gravity of the decision. The Zorvani may have lost their civilization, but they had not lost their ingenuity. It was time to fight back. Back on the bridge of the human flagship, Captain Carter received the message from the Zorvani. A small, surprised smile tugged at his lips. He had never expected the Zorvani to fight for themselves, let alone for humanity. But this was a new day, a day where everyone had a part to play in the fight for survival. "Let them assist us," Carter said with a determined voice. "We fight as one now. Humanity, the Zorvani. Together, we stand strong." The battle was far from over, but now, with the Zorvani's help, humanity's chances of success had just grown stronger. As Carter watched the enemy fleet ahead, he knew that Earth's future depended on this battle. And no matter what, they would fight to the end. The battle between Earth's fleet and the Council's forces raged across space, lighting up the void with bursts of energy and scattered debris. Captain Elias Carter stood at the front of the bridge, his hands gripping the armrests of his command chair. His crew was working at full capacity, coordinating with the Zorvani, who had offered their advanced knowledge to help turn the tide in the humans' favor. "Shields are holding steady, Captain," Lieutenant Maria Huang reported, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. But we can't keep this up much longer. The enemy fleet is relentless. Carter nodded, his eyes focused on the holographic screen in front of him. The Council's ships were still overwhelming in size and firepower. They outnumbered Earth's fleet by a large margin. But now, with the Zorveni helping, Earth had a fighting chance. "We need to act quickly," Carter said, his voice calm but full of determination. "Prepare the fleet for a coordinated strike. I want all ships to focus their fire on the enemy's lead vessel. We'll hit them hard and make them rethink their strategy." The crew quickly responded, their fingers flying over their consoles. Captain Carter could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the future of the galaxy. Earth had no intention of backing down. They would defend the Zorvani, and they would fight until the last ship stood. Meanwhile, on the refugee ships, the Zorvani worked in harmony with the humans, using their knowledge of alien technology to assist in targeting systems and ship repairs. Ileana, the Zorveni ambassador, stood at a console alongside Cora, the Zorveni engineer. Together, they were focused on feeding real-time data to the human fleet. "We've patched into their main targeting system," Cora said, his eyes scanning the console. "We can guide their shots more precisely now. It'll make a difference." Ileana nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never imagined that one day her people would be fighting beside humans for survival. The Zorvani had always been seen as weak and unimportant by the rest of the galaxy, but today they were making a stand, and they were standing with Earth. As the Zorveni technicians continued to feed data to Earth's ships, the coordinated strike was about to begin. Captain Carter took a deep breath, steadying himself for the moment of action. "All ships prepare to fire," Carter ordered. "We strike now." A chorus of "Aye, Captain," echoed through the bridge as the fleet moved into position. The human ships, now guided by the Zorveni's targeting adjustments, lined up for their strike. The first wave of energy blasts tore through space, streaking toward the enemy fleet with deadly precision. The Council's lead ship, a massive warship that dwarfed Earth's vessels, was the first to feel the brunt of the assault. The barrage of energy hit it from multiple angles, its shields flickering as they absorbed the force. But the shields were no match for the combined firepower of the human and Zorvani ships. With a deafening explosion, the lead ship was disabled, its engines flickering and its weapons falling silent. "Direct hit. The enemy flagship is down," Lieutenant Huang shouted, her voice full of astonishment. Carter couldn't help but let out a small breath of relief. This was the break they needed. The Council's fleet had been thrown into disarray. Without their command ship, the rest of their forces were beginning to retreat. But Carter knew the battle wasn't over yet. The Council wasn't going to give up so easily. As if on cue, the remaining Council ships regrouped, forming a tighter formation. Their weapons were still active, and they were now targeting Earth's fleet with renewed focus. "Incoming fire," Huang called out. "They're trying to retaliate." Carter watched as the Council ships unleashed a barrage of laser beams and missiles. His heart raced as the energy blasts streaked toward them. The bridge crew worked frantically to maintain shields, but the incoming attack was devastating. "Braced for impact," Carter shouted. The first blast hit their ship, sending a shockwave through the hull. The lights flickered, and the entire bridge shook. Carter's hands tightened around the armrests of his chair, but he didn't flinch. "Report," he barked. "We've lost some auxiliary systems," Lieutenant Huang replied, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Shields are holding, but we've taken damage. All ships, keep your distance and stay focused," Carter ordered, refusing to let his resolve waver. "We've come this far. Now is the time to finish this." The fleet adjusted their formation, keeping their distance from the Council ships as they focused their fire on the remaining targets. The Zorvani, working alongside the humans, continued to provide vital information that helped Earth's fleet to strike with precision. In the heat of battle, a sudden realization hit Ileana. Earth was more than just a planet to the Zorvani. The humans had shown them what it meant to fight for something greater than themselves. They had shown them what it meant to fight for a future, for hope. And for the first time in many years, Ileana felt the weight of her people's past begin to lift. There was hope. There was a chance for a future. "Captain, the council is retreating," Lieutenant Huang reported, her voice full of disbelief. "We've broken their will. They're falling back." Carter allowed himself a small smile, though he knew this wasn't the end. The council would not forget this defeat. But today, Earth had proven something to the galaxy, that even the smallest and most unexpected forces could stand against the greatest powers. "Keep the pressure on them," Carter ordered. "We'll see this through until they're out of our space." And with that, Earth's fleet, now strengthened by the Zorvani, pressed forward, the tide of battle turning in their favor. The fight was not over, but Earth had made its stand. The galaxy would remember this day. Humanity and its new allies would not be so easily cast aside. The battle had taken a toll on both sides. Earth's fleet, although victorious in breaking the Council's forces, had suffered significant damage. Yet even as their ships floated through the darkness of space, battered and scarred, there was an undeniable feeling of triumph. Captain Elias Carter stood on the command deck of the Endeavour, staring out at the field of debris that once belonged to the enemy fleet. The stars seemed to shine brighter now, as if the universe itself acknowledged their victory. Still, he couldn't shake the weight of what they had all just been through. The Zorvani had fought by their side, and in doing so, they had created an unbreakable bond. But the battle was far from over. There was more work to be done. "Captain, the Council's retreat has begun," Lieutenant Huang said, her voice calm but filled with relief. "They're withdrawing to their sector, but the damage they've inflicted, it'll take time to recover." Carter nodded. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. We need to assess the damage and start repairs immediately. We don't know when they'll return, but we have to be ready." The crew worked quickly, adjusting their systems and preparing for the next stage. It was a moment of respite, but even in that quiet, the humans and Zorvani knew that the Council would return. Stronger, angrier. Earth had made its mark on the galaxy, but it had also made powerful enemies. Ileana, the Zorvani ambassador, entered the command center, her presence a calming influence amid the chaos. Her people had lost so much, yet here they stood, shoulder to shoulder with the humans, having fought together for survival. "Captain Carter," she said, her voice soft but firm, "we need to discuss what happens next. The Council will not forget this." Carter turned to face her, his expression serious. "I know, but we have to move forward. The Zorvani have found safety here, and we can't afford to waste this opportunity." Ileana nodded in agreement, but there was sadness in her eyes. "We've lost too much to turn back. My people have lived in fear for far too long. But now we have hope, thanks to you and your people." Carter's gaze softened. "It's not just my people. It's all of us now. We fight as one, and we will rebuild." The message was clear. They were no longer just a coalition of races fighting for survival. They were something more, a new force in the galaxy, one that would stand up for the underdogs, the forgotten, and the oppressed. But there were still problems to address. The Zorvani needed more than just protection. They needed a future where they could thrive, not just survive. The humans had proven their strength, but now they had to prove their compassion. "Captain, I've been in contact with Earth's High Command," Lieutenant Huang said, cutting into the conversation. "They've sent reinforcements to help with repairs and to establish a defense perimeter. It looks like we're in for a long journey ahead." Carter nodded. "We'll need all the help we can get. But first, let's focus on stabilizing our forces. Once we've done that, we'll be able to plan our next move." As the Endeavour continued its course toward the nearest human base, Ileana spoke again, her voice filled with quiet determination. "There's something I must tell you, Captain. While we've fought together, there is more that connects us. The Zorvani have ancient knowledge, technology that could help your people in ways you cannot yet imagine. Carter raised an eyebrow. Ancient technology? What do you mean? Ileana stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with purpose. Our people have long been hiding something. Something that could change the course of the galaxy. It's a form of energy manipulation, a way to harness the very fabric of space itself. But we've never had the strength to use it. Not until now. Captain Carter stared at her, disbelief mixed with curiosity. Energy manipulation. That's impossible. It's not impossible, Ileana replied, her voice steady. We've kept it hidden for centuries. But now that we've allied with you, the humans, we can unlock its potential. Together, we can rebuild and protect both our peoples. The weight of her words settled over the command deck like a heavy fog. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about creating a future that no one had ever dared to dream of. A future where Earth and the Zorvani could stand strong together, free from the shadows of the past. Captain, we're ready to begin, Ileana said, her voice resolute. Carter took a deep breath, absorbing the magnitude of what she was saying. The stakes had just risen higher than he ever imagined. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for a future, for a new era in the galaxy. We'll need to gather our forces and prepare for the next phase, Carter said, his voice steady. But we'll do it together. We'll give the galaxy a new hope, one where we don't let anyone, be left behind. As the Endeavor continued its journey, the bond between the humans and the Zorvani had solidified. They had fought side by side, and now they would build something even greater. The galaxy might have forgotten the Zorvani, but Earth never would. And with that, they set their sights on the future, one filled with hope, strength, and unity. The Endeavor sailed smoothly through the stars, its crew exhausted but determined. Captain Elias Carter stood by the observation window, staring into the endless stretch of space. His mind was racing with the weight of everything that had happened, and everything that was to come. The alliance between Earth and the Zorvani had changed the galaxy in ways they couldn't even fully understand yet. They had already begun making plans for the next phase of their journey. Earth's fleet had begun reinforcing the outer defense perimeter, ensuring that no other threats could take advantage of their temporary vulnerability. Meanwhile, the Zorvani were working tirelessly with the human engineers, beginning to unlock the secrets of the ancient energy manipulation technology that Ileana had promised. As Captain Carter looked out into the vastness, he couldn't help but wonder how much more of the galaxy was out there, waiting to be discovered. They had made powerful enemies, but they had also made invaluable allies. The Zorvani weren't just grateful for the protection. They were eager to contribute, to help the humans build a future, one where they could stand side by side as equals. It was a feeling of unity, something Carter never thought would be possible in such a divided universe. Captain, you're needed on the bridge. Lieutenant Guang's voice broke through his thoughts. Carter turned and nodded, following her down the corridor. When they reached the command center, Ileana was already there, waiting for him. Captain, I have news, Ileana said. The Zorvani technology is showing incredible promise. We've begun creating the first of the new energy reactors that will power not just your fleet, but entire colonies. This is just the beginning. Carter's heart quickened. That's incredible. I never imagined we'd be able to harness such power. What do we need to do next? Ileana smiled. We will need to build a network of these reactors, but we're also discovering other applications. These technologies could allow us to manipulate gravity, create faster-than-light travel, and even shield entire planets from attacks. Carter took a deep breath. The possibilities were overwhelming. They were on the verge of something truly revolutionary. But what about the Council? He asked. They've been quiet since we pushed them back. Do we think they'll retaliate? Ileana's face grew serious. They are not the only threat. The galaxy is full of empires and factions who will see this alliance as a challenge to their power. It's only a matter of time before they come for us. Carter nodded. He knew the dangers of the galaxy all too well. But the difference now was that they weren't alone. They had a powerful alliance that could defend their world, and they had the technology to protect themselves and to strike back if necessary. "We'll be ready," Carter said, his voice steady. "We'll stand strong. Together, humans and Zorvani will protect each other, no matter what comes next." As the Endeavor moved toward Earth's outer colonies, the crew knew that they had something powerful at their disposal. Hope. Hope for a future where they were no longer the hunted. A future where Earth and its allies could push forward into the unknown, exploring, growing, and standing tall against whatever the galaxy could throw at them. The Zorvani had given them more than just technology. They had given them a glimpse of a future where peace could be more than just a dream. It was a future where strength and compassion could coexist, and where no one would be left behind. "Captain," Lieutenant Huang called out, "we've received a message from Earth. They've authorized the creation of a new alliance, one that spans the galaxy. The message is clear. Earth stands for peace, but it will fight for its people and its allies." Carter took a deep breath, absorbing the magnitude of what she was saying. The stakes had just risen higher than he ever imagined. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for a future, for a new era in the galaxy. "We'll need to gather our forces and prepare for the next phase," Carter said, his voice steady. "But we'll do it together. We'll give the galaxy a new hope, one where we don't let anyone, be left behind." As the Endeavor continued its journey, the bond between the humans and the Zorvani had solidified. They had fought side by side, and now they would build something even greater. The galaxy might have forgotten the Zorvani, but Earth never would. And with that, they set their sights on the future, one filled with hope, strength, and unity. The Endeavor sailed smoothly through the stars, its crew exhausted but determined. Captain Elias Carter stood by the observation window, staring into the endless stretch of space. His mind was racing with the weight of everything that had happened and everything that was to come. The alliance between Earth and the Zorvani had changed the galaxy in ways they couldn't even fully understand yet. They had already begun making plans for the next phase of their journey. Earth's fleet had begun reinforcing the outer defense perimeter, ensuring that no other threats could take advantage of their temporary vulnerability. Meanwhile, the Zorvani were working tirelessly with the human engineers, beginning to unlock the secrets of the ancient energy manipulation technology that Ileana had promised. As Captain Carter looked out into the vastness, he couldn't help but wonder how much more of the galaxy was out there, waiting to be discovered. They had made powerful enemies, but they had also made invaluable allies. The Zorvani weren't just grateful for the protection. They were eager to contribute, to help the humans build a future, one where they could stand side by side as equals. It was a feeling of unity, something Carter never thought would be possible in such a divided universe. "Captain, you're needed on the bridge." Lieutenant Huang's voice broke through his thoughts. Carter turned and nodded, following her down the corridor. When they reached the command center, Ileana was already there, waiting for him. "Captain, I have news," Ileana said. "The Zorvani technology is showing incredible promise. We've begun creating the first of the new energy reactors that will power not just your fleet, but entire colonies. This is just the beginning." Carter's heart quickened. "That's incredible. I never imagined we'd be able to harness such power. What do we need to do next?" Ileana smiled. "We will need to build a network of these reactors, but we're also discovering other applications. These technologies could allow us to manipulate gravity, create faster-than-light travel, and even shield entire planets from attacks." Carter took a deep breath. The possibilities were overwhelming. They were on the verge of something truly revolutionary. "But what about the Council?" he asked. "They've been quiet since we pushed them back. Do we think they'll retaliate?" Ileana's face grew serious. "They are not the only threat. The galaxy is full of empires and factions who will see this alliance as a challenge to their power. It's only a matter of time before they come for us." Carter nodded. He knew the dangers of the galaxy all too well. But the difference now was that they weren't alone. They had a powerful alliance that could defend their world, and they had the technology to protect themselves and to strike back if necessary. "We'll be ready," Carter said, his voice steady. "We'll stand strong. Together, humans and Zorvani will protect each other, no matter what comes next." As the Endeavor moved toward Earth's outer colonies, the crew knew that they had something powerful at their disposal: hope. Hope for a future where they were no longer the hunted. A future where Earth and its allies could push forward into the unknown, exploring, growing, and standing tall against whatever the galaxy could throw at them. The Zorvani had given them more than just technology. They had given them a glimpse of a future where peace could be more than just a dream. It was a future where strength and compassion could coexist, and where no one would be left behind. "Captain," Lieutenant Huang called out, "we've received a message from Earth. They've authorized the creation of a new alliance, one that spans the galaxy. The message is clear. Earth stands for peace, but it will fight for its people and its allies.